this lesson, we're going to be laying out the UVs for this Jerry Can. We've got it color-coded, and now that we have our materials in place, it's going to be quite easy for us to select the faces and do planar mapping, which is the approach we're going to take for this. So I'm going to go ahead and select the side A first. So over here in my hypershade, I'm just going to mouse over the side A Lambert shader, right mouse click, and select objects with material. Now select all the faces. This is also a good time to just double check, make sure no other faces are selected, in case accidentally a face had that material on it. This looks good, so I'm going to go ahead and open up Planar Mapping, option box. So I'm going to reset this, and we're going to be projecting from the x-axis. I'm going to go ahead and project that out. That is the bounding box you're seeing around there. We'll go ahead and open up the UV texture editor. So you can access that either from the polygon shelf at the end here. I've got a couple extras right here that I've added onto my shelf. So this is typically the end icon here on the shelf. You can also access it from Window, UV texture editor. Okay, so now that we have that open up, you can see that here. It's filling up the entire 0 to 1 space. I'm going to just scale it down. And instead of placing it over here, which is where it's ultimately going to be, actually right about here, as I'm laying this out for each one of these, every time I project it, it's going to fill this 0 to 1 space. So what I like to do is just go ahead and drag these off to the side here, and sort of use kind of an imaginary space here. You can also use the areas down here to line them up. Maybe this is a little bit better approach. So why don't we go ahead and use this space down here, drop it right there. Okay, then I'm going to move over to the back side here. I'm going to select these faces now, so that's the B side. Select objects with material. And some of these were laid out previously. I did a little test run, so if you see them over here already laid out, that is what's going on. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and project that now. We've already got that set up. I'm just going to repeat the process. Scale it down. Bring it down to here. I'm going to go back to object mode for a moment. And this is where I'm going to set these up so they're fairly close to the same size. So when you have overlapping like this and you're trying to edit the UVs, first of all, you access the UVs by right mouse clicking over the shell and selecting UV. And then you'll need to click on one of the intersections here where you would normally find the vertex. And the UVs actually sit on the same area, the same space as the vertex. So if you just click on one of those and then hold down Control, right mouse click, and select to shell, that will select all the UVs for that particular shell. Then you can hit W on the keyboard to just move it. And you can also scale it. There's R on the keyboard. So I'm going to lay this right on top of the other one and scale it down to be approximately the same size. Okay, that's pretty close. I'll bring it over here. And I'm going to flip it around. Probably give it a little bit more space. We're going to be sewing and moving some of the other pieces into place here, so I'm just leaving a little bit of a gap. I'm going to go ahead and flip that. It's this right here. This icon up here will flip things either vertically or horizontally. Also, you can rotate things around. We're not going to use all the tools in here, but we'll be using probably these 4 right here. We're also going to use the cut tool. So we'll be cutting the edges and move and sew. Okay, so let's move on to the next piece. I'm going to grab this front one right here. Go ahead and do the planar mapping on that. So this has gotten a little bit distorted here. So I think what I'm going to do is come back in here, open up the option box, and I'm going to line this so it's pretty much straight on to camera, like that. And I'm going to project from camera and just see how that works. So that worked out a little bit better. That straightened things out. So come over here and scale that down now. And move that into place. I'm going to drop it right here for now. And we'll come to the back side, do the same thing. Right mouse click over that material and select objects. Okay, and we'll do the same thing. Go ahead and try that with the camera setup, and that worked okay. So bring this one down in size, drop it over here. Okay. So let's move on to the bottom now. Right mouse click, selecting that material. And I'm going to go back and select the x-axis right here. Project from that. Distorted it a little bit. For some reason it's doing that. Let's go back in here and try working with the camera again. Just kind of center it in my screen. And project that, and that did a much better job. Sometimes you have to play around with the projections, kind of either with the angle or the camera, in this case. Okay, so we'll just leave that one right there for now. And we'll come back to the top. Select the top material. And we'll try projecting this with the camera. So that worked out pretty well. And we'll just drop this right here. The last thing we need to do is the spout, both the inside and outside. So I'm going to select the material for that. That's our spout out. Grab that first, and this one we're going to do a little bit differently. We're going to use cylindrical mapping, so just go ahead and select that, and we can see that there is, it's got a little bit of distortion on it. It's not too bad. I'm just going to bring it up here and see if we could possibly rotate this a little bit and straighten it out some. So there's a small little X down here, a little diamond shape with a crosshair in it. If you select that, it will toggle between being able to access the manipulators to move this around here. So I think something about like that might have the least distortion on it. So I'm going to go with that and then just shrink that down. These are all going to have to get scaled down a little bit more than they are. I'm actually going to drag this one off to the side here. We'll work with the spout after we finish sewing together the main body here of the can. So I'm going to go ahead and select the inside now. Grabbing those, and we'll do the same thing with cylindrical. And that needs to be rotated as well. There we go. Okay, then just scaling that down. And we'll move it off over to the side here. Okay, so I'm going to right mouse click, go back to object mode so I can see where everything is at. Okay, so we've got a bit of overlapping going on here. I'm going to grab the shell for our B side right here. So I'm just right mouse clicking, going to UV, selecting a UV, holding down Control key, and selecting to shell with the right mouse button. W on the keyboard. I'm now going to move this up into place. So I'll place it right about here. Do the same thing with the other side. Placing it right about here. Okay. So now what we're going to do, let's go ahead and open this up a little bit wider so we can see this. We're going to start cutting and sewing and moving and all that good stuff. Sort of put these pieces back together. Now it is possible that we could just align all of these on here and not sew them back together, and it would be okay. Especially in Mudbox, it's pretty easy to hide seams, especially on corners like this. We do have some rounded corners on our Jerry Can here. If I hit 3 on the keyboard, you can see it's a little bit rounded. So we're going to try to hide the seams that we do have in areas back in here where they're not going to be noticeable, and go ahead and sew together the areas around here so we don't have anything very noticeable. Again, in Mudbox, you could very easily cover up a lot of the seams here, as opposed to working in something like Photoshop or any type of 2D paint program. It's a little bit more tricky to hide the seams. But let's go ahead and sew these back together here. So I'm going to find the edge to this right here on the bottom. So I'm going to select Edge, grab the bottom here, I'm going to deselect these, and come down here and look for it in the corresponding shell. So we've got it right here. So I'm going to kind of move this into place initially, and this edge is going to attach here, whereas this edge right here is going to attach to this side. So what we really need to do is cut this piece in half and create a seam down the middle. So I'm going to actually grab the UVs on this, grab the shell, move it off to the side here, and then I'm going to come in here and select the edge down the center. So I'm holding the Shift key and clicking. Right down that edge there. So now that I have that selected, I can come up here and with the scissor icon, I can cut it. And I'm going to make sure I'm on 1 here on the keyboard so I don't have any unusual stretching. So those are separate shells now. So if I go to UV and I select to shell, we've got a separate shell now. So I'm going to take that and move it over here and scale it down a little bit closer to size. And move that into place. So it needs to actually flip around here like that. And now if I come here and select the edges across the top here, deselect these so it doesn't grab anything on the side. So we can see the edges here match up. So I'm going to go ahead and select Move and Sew. So that attaches those right there. I'm going to do the same thing right here. So I'm going to just go ahead and kind of position this initially. Grab the UVs on this. Move it up here a little bit closer. Scale it down. Okay, and then select the edges across the top here, and then deselect the ones I don't need, and move and sew. So those are attached now, and our seam is going to be hidden here in this extruded area where we're never going to see it. Okay, so let's get the pieces here along, it would be the back side here. We're going to separate these two pieces and then sew them together on either side. So I believe that's this piece right here. There it is. Okay. So to shell, I'm just going to move this off to the side so I can work with it. Come in here, and we're going to select that edge down the center. Okay, so with that selected, I'm going to cut that. I've got two separate shells now. There they are. So I'm going to figure out which goes to which first by coming up here and just selecting the edges. So this one goes here. Drag this up here into position and scale it. Okay, and then grab the edges on this side. And I don't want to grab these right here, so I'm going to deselect anything around here. Deselect that and that. Okay, so with all those selected, so let's go ahead and move and sew. Putting that into place there. Got a little bit of overlapping here. Let's just go ahead and fix that. There we go. We'll have to come back in here and kind of check some areas out to make sure we don't have any overlapping happening. Got some little areas right here that are very close to overlapping, so we may come back in here and just kind of relax those areas. Okay, so we've got one side done. Let's do the other side here. So I'm going to grab the UVs on this one, move it up into place, and you can see we're kind of running out of room. I'm going to have to push these over. So let's kind of scale this down here. I think this one could have been scaled down a little bit more. It's actually a little bit off the alignment. Okay, so that looks pretty accurate. You can see these lining up here, the edges, a little bit better. So I may actually come back here and adjust that a little bit later, but let's go ahead and sew these together. So I'm going to move this over now. Grab the edge along here, right down to there, and make sure you select that one. Okay, and we'll move and sew that into place. So that looks better. This is how it should look. This has gotten a little bit stretched here, so I'm going to grab the UVs, this one, and scale it down. Okay, so they're not identical. Should be okay for working in Mudbox. All right, so let's move on with the front side here. This aqua area. Just scale this up a little bit to work with it. Push it down here. And we'll come in here and divide this in half. Selecting the edge down the center. All right, and we'll cut that. And go ahead and pull these apart. Okay. Let's go ahead and grab them both. We can scale them down uniformly to get them to the right size. That way they should line up a little better. So here's about where they should be. Just kind of lining these up. They could still get scaled down a little more. Okay, so that's pretty close right there. Okay, so let's see if these line up right here. I'm going to grab the edge. Right. And these edges here. Make sure I'm not wrapping it around the side. Okay, and we'll move and sew that into place. And we'll do the same thing with this one. Grab the UVs, grab the shell, move it over, line that up, and grab the edges. All right, and move and sew. Okay, so we've got that put together. The last part we have is the top here. I think the top is going to be okay to leave separate. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this whole piece right here and scale it up so it fits within that 0 to 1 space, filling it up. If you fill up the space like this, right up to the edge, you're going to have much better resolution. Okay, so that's in place. Let's grab the top, move it up here, and we can scale that up just a little bit more. And we've got the spout here. So let's grab the first one, and we can scale this down quite a bit. Okay, and this one here. All right. So you can see I've left some additional space over here. That's going to be for the handle and the cap. And that will be another lesson. It's actually quite an intricate one to lay those out and unfold them. One last thing that we should do before we close out this tutorial is just come back in here and make sure we don't have any overlapping UVs. I don't think we do. But just go around and check and make sure you don't have any situations where things are sort of pulled over and overlapping. We have some that are very close here where we had our edge loops. And sometimes this will cause a little bit of problem in Mudbox when you're painting. You'll see a little bit of a sliver-like artifact in there, and then you may have to come back in here and make some adjustments. Here's an area where we've got a little bit of overlapping, so I'm going to pull that over. Pull this one in a little bit. Here we go. So just go around, check everything out, make sure there's no overlapping, and we've got the main body of the Jerry Can laid out.